Hello and welcome to a vlog. This is going to be one of those vlogs where you need to make a large mug of tea, possibly a pot of tea, using, yes, a tea cosy to keep it warm. And perhaps you'll need some Jaffa cakes. Look what they've invented. Pineapple Jaffa cakes. I haven't tried them yet. I imagine they're quite horrible. But this is going to be one of these talky ones where I'm afraid there's no pretty pictures whatsoever, just my ugly mug chatting away, and I've got the laptop out. Not for a PowerPoint presentation, but the next best thing, an Excel spreadsheet presentation. Hashtag spreadsheets are fun. It's about time, I think, that I did another video about the costs of being on board a boat. I did one ages ago. I think it was vlog 67 or 68. And it was after I'd had the boat for about a year. Well, now, of course, I've been on board for 4.5 years. This is my 5th year. So I've got 4 good, solid years of receipts and things going back that I've been looking over, totting up. And I do keep, as you can imagine, I'm the kind of person who keeps detailed receipts of everything. Yes, absolutely I do. So I've got my spreadsheet, and they're divided into different columns such as coal, gas, electric, all that kind of thing. And I've averaged them out, so we've got a 4-year average. And so hopefully this will give you some good idea of what it costs to live on a boat. I'll start with the things that I consider are sort of an integral part of having a boat, and then I will mention some other things that will cost you, but they will be obviously completely up to you and different from my circumstances, which is not to say that actually all the initial things will be different for you, but there'll be some of the things that are common. For example, I have a column in my spreadsheet called annual costs, and these are things that are kind of one-off things I have to pay every year, and the most fundamental of those, of course, is the boat licence. If you are putting your boat on Canal and River Trust waters, then you will have to pay them a fee. Now, there's no single number for this. It depends how long your boat is. It now depends, since they brought in a change recently, on how wide your boat is. There is also a prompt payment discount, which I think used to be 5%, and now they've reduced that to 2.5%. And I think they're now giving 2.5% if you pay by direct debit or pay online or something. So there's this big table they publish on their website of lengths versus costs versus whatever. For me, the most recent cost, which I paid in September last year, £937. What do you get for that? You get the licence to put your boat on the canal and then chug it around the canals, moor anywhere for up to 14 days unless it's otherwise signposted, and no extra fee to pay for that. Obviously, if you go into a marina, the marina will charge you, but for mooring on the canal, that is included as part of your boat licence. So for me, £937, and my boat is a 56-foot long narrowboat, so fairly typical. The standard narrowboat is 57, and you'll be paying about that sort of money. If you have a 30-foot boat, it will be much less. If you've got a wide beam, it'll be a bit more. If I can find a link, I think there is a specific page on the Canal and River Trust website where they have this table. If I can find that link, I will leave it in the description below, and then you can go and check out what your boat would cost if you are thinking of buying one. The other thing, of course, you have to have and pay every year is insurance for your boat. Well, you're supposed to pay for insurance anyway, and it's not as expensive as you might think. I'm paying £170, and that includes living aboard, and it's fairly comprehensive. So if you're paying more than a couple of £100, I would definitely have a shop around. And I think that includes a certain amount of contents cover. If you've got high value items like, for example, the laptop or my camcorder, stuff like that, you do have to name it specifically, as you do on most insurance policies, and there may be an additional premium, but obviously it depends on your insurer and what it is you are trying to insure. But having paid for your boat licence and your boat insurance, pop the boat in the water and off you go. You are now a boater. Other things I have on my annual costs include an amount for blacking. Now, obviously the blacking only happens every 2 to 3 years, but I have allowed £300 per annum, being about £600 every 2 years, which is roughly what it costs to get the boat hauled out and given a couple of coats of standard bitumen blacking. Yes, you can go the whole hog, have the hull grit blasted and pay for 2-pack epoxy if you want, and then you only need to haul the boat out every 7 years maybe. But personally, I quite like having the boat hauled out every 3 years so I can just have a look at the condition of the hull. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well continue using standard bitumen paint and get that done at the same time. Now, my annual costs column, because I've been keeping track of it for my own purposes rather than necessarily doing this video, also includes some stuff that is personal to me that you almost certainly won't have. For example, I've got my camper van and I pay to have that put in a secure storage site when I'm out boating, so I've got a fee for annual van storage. I've got a little run around car which I use. When I'm moored up over winter, I'll go and get my car. Normally it stays at a family member's house, and I'll go on the train, get the car, and then I'll have that with me for winter so I can do shopping trips and things like that. So there's a car tax, car insurance, the van tax, van insurance, car service and MOT, van service and MOT. These are luxuries, I know, I don't need them, really, but I like having my car for running around to the shops, and frankly the tax is 20 quid a year and the insurance is not that much, and the MOT, providing it passes, is not that much. So it's cheap enough just to keep the car, and for the convenience I'm happy to have it. And then the camper van, obviously a pure luxury, but I like having my camper van. But that does rack up my annual costs a bit. But my average annual sort of one-off annual costs over the 4-year period has been £2,286. Bearing in mind that includes all the van and car stuff. If I took out the van and car stuff, I would be paying about £1,400 a year on the licence, the insurance and the blacking costs. So if you don't have car and van, you can expect to pay about £1,400 a year on boat licence, boat blacking, boat insurance, thereabouts. The next column I have is coal. Not all boaters have a coal stove, but an awful lot do, and people are always asking me, well, how long does a bag of coal last? It's hard to say. It depends how hot you like your boat, how cold the weather is, and so on. A typical bag of coal is 25 kilograms. They typically cost £10 to £11, and yes, I know it's not actually pure coal, it's coal briquettes. It's made of a mix of coal and coke and other stuff that they make these briquettes out of, but it is generically referred to as coal. So the average I have paid per year for coal, it does seem like quite a lot, but £452 a year, which is at, I think I've calculated that, at £11 per bag. That is 41 bags of coal. It does seem like a lot, doesn't it? I mean, let's say winter is the 5 months, November to March, although sometimes it does go on into April. I'm expecting to have the fire lit tomorrow, and we're into May because we're having another cold snap. But let me see, 41 bags divided over 5 months. That's 8.2 bags of coal per month. That's 2 a week. Yeah, it's probably about right, actually. I imagine a bag normally goes for 3 or 4 days. So 8 a month, yeah, that's about right, isn't it? £452 a year on coal. Now, obviously some boaters prefer to just forage for wood, but wood, when you just pick it up off the side of the towpath, is wet wood. It doesn't burn terribly well. You should really dry it for many months and then burn that. But if you don't want to buy coal, you don't have to. There are, plenty of people who do just forage and live with the fact that wet wood is not really very good at burning. Gas. I have 2 13-kilogram gas bottles in the bow of the boat. It is purely used on my boat for cooking, which largely extends to heating up things like, pie in the oven or something, and some potatoes, lots of cups of tea, and I get through 2 bottles a year. A bottle is about £30, so my average has come out at £66 a year on gas, but it's pretty consistent that I will swap a bottle out every 6 months, so relatively negligible. If you had one of those oldie or old gas boilers that use gas for heating, apparently they go through gas at a tremendous rate, so your gas consumption would be a lot more if you have a gas boiler. Electricity. By and large, the boat is powered by its solar panels when I'm out cruising, but when I'm plugged into a shoreline and paying for electricity, because the marinas tend to charge for it on top of a mooring fee, I've managed to spend £64 a year on average. that is about £9 a month if you allow for the fact that I moor November through to March, and then often I'll moor up in July and August as well. So if we say 7 months moored, 7 months plugged into electricity, excuse me, that is about £9 a month for each of the 7 months on electricity, but £64 a year. Now diesel, and I know people are going to laugh at me for my diesel use because, well, I'm not quite minimalist, am I? For whom a day is not complete unless they've spent 12 hours continuously chugging in the pouring rain, breaking through the ice. Hello, minimalist. My cruising is more a relaxed style, let us say. I do about 7 months of the year actually out. No, wait, let's have a think. 7 months. 7 months mooring, 5 months cruising. It's no wonder they call me mooring the cut sometimes. 5 months of the year spent cruising, which is April, May, June, and then September, October. And I typically only move the boat once or twice a week because I'll chug along for 3 or 4 hours, find a nice spot, sit there for 2 or 3 days, move along again. So my diesel spend is relatively minimal, and it has come out to an average of £176 a year, which is not an awful lot when you consider that the price of a litre of diesel is about £1. What is it now? I know it's crashed recently with the coronavirus, but it was about £1.20, £1.30. So that's not a huge amount of diesel. But again, if you're not someone who cruises just every day, day in, day out, if you move a bit, find a nice spot, stay there for a few days, move again, you won't spend that much on diesel. Unless, again, it's cold, perhaps. If you are running your diesel heater in winter, maybe you haven't got a coal stove, and there's all sorts of factors that will mean your monies are different to mine. But I've spent £176 a year on average over the last 4 years. It's worth mentioning, by the way, because I'm always being asked this, is the diesel red diesel? Yes, it's all red diesel, but the way it's taxed and the way you pay for it is a bit peculiar on the canals. When you buy your diesel, you declare to the person you're buying it from, the wharf or marina or whatever, how much of it is used for propulsion and how much is used for domestic use, like heating. And you are allowed to self-declare that, and then you are charged a different amount for the propulsion versus the domestic, because the tax rates are different, and that is then sent off to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And the Revenue and Customs say typically they expect a 60-40 split, which I guess is 60 propulsion, 40 domestic. I can never remember which way around they go, but you can legally declare anything. You could even declare 100% domestic. If, say, you sat in a marina and you only use diesel for heating the boat, you could legitimately declare 100% domestic use. If you did and HMRC ever caught up with you, you would have to justify it, but technically you can. As I say, normally 60-40 is an accepted typical amount, and a lot of marinas and wharves will just write 60-40 and charge you 60-40 regardless, even though technically they should do whatever you specify. Some will just say no, it's 60-40, and they won't have it any other way. But there you go, it's all a bit peculiar. It's under review at the moment. The whole system is under review. There was a big consultation about it and how they're going to go forward, because if they suddenly say you've got to have separate tanks for white diesel and red diesel, and this one's got to be used for propulsion and this one's got to be used for domestic, well, it's going to cause chaos, because no boats have very few have dual tanks. If you've installed a diesel stove, you might have a separate tank for fueling that, but it probably is the same tank that you use for propulsion that's going to fire any Eberspacher type units. It's going to cause chaos if they suddenly decide we all need separate tanks, and all the wharves and marinas are going to have to install separate tanks for white and red. Oh, it's going to be chaos. So we wait to see what happens on that. But for the moment, you just self-declare and you get charged different tax rates. Okay, I've got a column in the spreadsheet called Boat Bits, which is any sort of miscellaneous stuff I buy for the boat. And I've made some notes here. Nicholson's Guides, which are the guidebooks I use. Oh, excuse me. Paintbrushes, paint, tools, lights, gaffer tape, the new alternator I had, what was it, 2 years ago, whenever I put that on, bilge mats to soak up oil for doing my oil and filter changes, fenders, mooring rope, chains, grease for the stern gland, an electric hookup cable, the new batteries, the new fridge. Any kind of boat bits that I buy go under the boat bits column. I had a very expensive year last year because I bought the new batteries and fridge, and that was over £1,500. The other years were 600, 380. Anyway, it comes out to an average over 4 years of £781 a year on boat bits. And you will, if you have a boat, end up buying boat bits. No matter how much you say, I won't need it, you'll buy boat bits. So it's worth having a budget for that kind of thing. As I say, £781 a year for me on average. Now, next is mooring costs. And if you are a proper continuous cruiser who never moors in a marina or pays for any kind of mooring at all, of course this will be irrelevant to you. But I like to moor up over winter, so I pay winter mooring, and then I do, as I mentioned, sometimes moor up July, August as well. On average, I've spent quite a painful £2,265 a year on mooring fees. Let's see what that is. If I divide that by 7 for the 7 months moored, that does seem odd. £324 a month on average. That can't be right, because I've never been anywhere where I've paid £324 a month. So I'm not quite sure how I've managed to spend that much on mooring. There have been little ad hoc times when I've pulled into a marina for mooring. So last year, was it at the Crick Show, I spent 5 days in a marina. So at the Crick Show, I spent 5 days in a marina, just, left the boat somewhere secure while I was off. That does seem like quite a lot of money. But anyway, if you don't moor up and you don't, that it won't be a relevant fee to you. If you moor all year round, you'll be paying, well, I would have said anywhere between £200 and £300 a month, despite my average being £324. I would have said typically a mooring fee will be £200 to £300 a month. If you're in London, forget that figure. It'll be, add another zero if you're in London. It's all skyrocket prices down there. It's a whole different bubble, as you know. But the rest of the country, you're probably going to pay somewhere between 200, 300. You might find a nice cheap one, 150. And it can sometimes depend on, again, the length of your boat. You might pay per length. You might pay for a particular size pontoon. Some of the marinas have a 50-foot pontoon, and if you're on that, you pay for the 50-foot pontoon, even if your boat is 30 foot. Some of them charge you for the length of the boat. And again, if you've got a wide beam, you'll probably pay double, because you're going to take up twice the amount of space. It's all very, very, very variable. Now, those are the costs that I reckon are standard costs for you to be on a boat and live aboard that boat. And they come to a grand total of an average of £6,090 a year. If you didn't pay for a mooring, it would be £3,825 per year. And that is to have your boat, to keep it heated, powered, filled with diesel, replacing any bits that need replacing, £3,825 a year, or if you have a bit of mooring like I do, £6,090. You will notice there are some other costs I have not mentioned, and this is that other set that will be so variable that I'm not even going to bother you with my numbers, but I'm simply going to mention them as things you'll need to take into account, because they will be completely different for you. So, for example, food. How much you spend on food depends on you. Do you like shopping at Waitrose, or do you shop at Aldi? Do you prepare your own food, or do you buy ready meals? Do you order in takeouts? Because you can get pizza deliveries to a narrowboat, provided you give them a nearby postcode and some directions. All those things will vary according to your personal preference. So what you spend on food, you know what you spend on food. Make your own number up. Equally, I have a column for domestic items, and that means things like toilet roll, toothpaste, cleaning products. So it's stuff I'd buy at the supermarket, but it's not food stuff. It's stuff for just maintaining the boat and whatever. Again, you know how much you spend on toilet roll and similar things, so make your own cost up for that. I've got a column on my spreadsheet for TV and comms. I do pay for a TV licence because I'm a law-abiding person. Please don't start screaming in the comments about, Nazis, it's a tax, There's no point. If you've got your opinion, fine, but honestly, just I like paying my TV licence because I don't want the hassle. And because I do watch live TV, so it's kind of legally mandated. And yes, for overseas viewers, yes, we pay a TV licence fee. It funds the BBC. Let's not have that discussion in the comments. I'm really bored of it. I also pay, obviously, for my mobile phone, and I pay for my little Wi-Fi dongle device that gives me Wi-Fi throughout the boat. So, what you choose to pay on those, up to you. Clothing. I will tell you my clothing budget because it's laughable. £90 a year on average on clothing. Basically, once every 2 to 3 years, I go to M&S and buy some new socks and underpants, maybe some new trousers and t-shirts. Wild times. But £90 a year on average. And frankly, you've seen my dress sense. You can understand why it's that little. But if you are a fashionista, your budget may well be more. Luxuries is anything I really didn't need to buy, but frankly, I fancied buying it, from a lottery ticket to whatever. So I have a budget for that. Social. I don't have much of a social budget. I'm not much of a social person. But if I go to a pub with friends, I'll put that in the social budget. Again, depends on how you are as to what your monies will be. And then finally, I have a miscellaneous column for stuff that just doesn't seem to fall into any other category. And I do have a car column as well, which really is where some of that car and van stuff should have gone, except I put it in the annual costs column because they are kind of one-off annual costs. And then the other car costs are obviously petrol, diesel for the van, any other stuff relating to having the car fixed, I suppose. How come I spent that much in? Ooh, dear me. So there we go. That is my, hopefully fairly brief, although I suspect the time is ticking up, run through of costs you might incur if you are living on a boat. You can keep it down really low. I say the base costs, for me, £6,000 a year. That's £500 a month. And then on top of that, food, domestic items, TV, internet, clothing, luxuries, social budget, miscellaneous budget, and of course I have my car budget as well. And I hope that is useful, and I think it's probably more, not to say my first video was inaccurate, but I only had 1 year's figures to base it on then. Well, this is over 4 years. So there we go. Any questions? Drop them down below and I will do my best to answer. Oh, and yes, thanks for noticing. I have cut my own hair. Yes. Cheerio.